Hello, beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. And if we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes. And you can learn more on my website at illuminatingSouls.com. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you get a good expanse of rest and sleep. So a little bit about this podcast. I think most of you who listen already know me and the work that I do, so the world of the angels is something that is familiar to you. And I also recognize that as this podcast grows, there may be those of you who are tuning in for a sleep podcast who may not know about the angels or have any desire to connect with them. It may not be your thing, and that's okay. Just so you know, the first 15 to 20 minutes of the podcast, typically, I share something related to the spiritual journey and the angels. I never quite know what we're going to talk about. I'm always inspired by the energy that's flowing through. And then for the remainder of the hour, I will read a story or tell a story. And if you want to just skip to that part of the podcast, you are welcome to do that. And I will always have the timestamp in the show notes so you know where to begin if that's the part you're interested in. It's all good, and you have my blessing to use this podcast in whatever way best supports you. So for now, I invite you to take a nice deep breath in and out, and allow yourself to get comfortable. Whether you're snuggling up into bed, or maybe you're resting in your favorite chair. Just as you listen to the sound of my voice, know that the angels are bringing forward waves of love for you. And if you're new to the world of angels, they are divine celestial beings who are the embodiment of divine love. I experience them as independent of any religion or specific spiritual path. I experience them as profoundly generous in their love and support of us. That they know who we are, they understand us at a soul level, and that they are here to bring forward love, healing, support, encouragement, and inspiration. And one of the things I love so much about working with the angels is the love that comes streaming through. It is a love without limits. It is a love that is deeply generous. You know, so often on this journey, we can sometimes perceive God's love as mutable, right? And I experience it much more like the sun. That the sun shines for all. And I believe that God's love is more generous and plentiful and available than the sun. So just as we go outside on a sunny day and soak up the rays, so is God's love available to us, or divine love, if that phrasing is more in alignment for you. And this love is of a frequency that we can gracefully metabolize. We need not perform for it or better ourselves for it. It would be like the sun telling the leaves of a tree, you must be greener and more beautiful before I will shine upon you. The sun simply shines because it is its nature to do so. And so it is with divine love. It is an always streaming, ever present presence that as we learn to open to, it becomes more graceful to receive. So take another deep breath in and release, allowing the light and the love of your angels to flow to you. Your angels have known you since before you were born. Your angels understand what is transpiring in your life. They know what is in your heart, and they are team you. They are your cheerleaders. They are your soft place to be, to rest. And so just allow the love of your angels to flow to you now. Just imagine it. The imagination is a beautiful gateway to connect with your divine team. That where we receive our divine guidance and where our imagination gateways are, there is some overlap. So quite often the imagination can serve to hone this connection. So I'm going to call in the angels now. They are already here, but I love the ritual of inviting them in. So I invite you to take a deep breath in as together we call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love and service to each of the beloveds who will receive this message. May their prayers be received in the loving heart of God. May their worries and burdens be eased, and may grace meet them on their path. Please assist each one of our beloveds here in opening more fully into the beauty and magic of their souls. And dear ones, just take a nice deep breath in and imagine, if you will, that the room you are in is being filled with the soft pink light that is filled with divine love that has been calibrated just for you. And this love is rippling to all that you love. It is generous in nature, and there is more than enough of it to ripple into your world. So just imagine now that the angels are sending blessings of light to all that you love, to all that carries love for you throughout time and space. That this love is not bound by our timeline. That this love can travel into the past. It can send blessings into the future. And most of all, it is present with you right now. And this love will help to bring a sense of well-being and peace to your heart. You are a blessing in this world, truly. You are a gift in this life. You are precious, and you are worthy of love. You carry gifts within you that make this world a better place, and I am so deeply grateful for you. Thank you for finding your way to this moment, whatever brought you here, and had you hit play on your podcast app. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to shine love upon you, because you are worthy of it and so much more. My prayer for you is that sparks of inspiration find you, that you come alive to the beautiful spark of light that you are, that well-being finds you, that healing comes to you, and that you feel the brightness and the beauty of your authentic spirit. Oh, this world is filled with such beauty for you. You have beautiful adventures awaiting you. I can feel the brightness of all that you are. And I invite you into a sense of hope and optimism. Perhaps optimism might feel too strong right now with all that is transpiring in the world, but how about if we settle on the hope and the prayer of brighter tomorrows? So take a deep breath in and allow yourself to come into alignment with the prayer and the hope of brighter tomorrows. We need not know how to cause them to come into being. We don't need to know the blueprint. All we need to do is say yes. I allow. I am willing. I choose. And I affirm that in this moment, blessings are being seeded in your name. Light is shining in service to your highest and best good. And that these blessings are rippling to all that you love. This is a wave filled with the generosity of spirit. There is more than enough to go around. And so just breathe and allow your body to relax and let go. You have permission to rest. You have done enough in this moment. And you have permission to drift off into that beautiful mystery of sleep. And your angels will watch over you and cushion you with love. And while you rest, I'm going to tell you a story. So tonight, I am guided to share with you my own personal ode to summer and the summer of childhood. I've shared before that I'm facilitating a class right now called the Soul Stories Guild, and the angels bring forward different prompts for us to help us connect with the tapestry of stories that span throughout our lifetime. It's wonderful, such a joy to be in a sacred circle and share our stories together. And one of the prompts they shared was, how did you know when summer was about to arrive? And they were referencing childhood. Like, what were the talismans of summer? And then they invited us to begin to just sit with that and allow the memories to come back to what summer meant to you as a child. And I invite you to do that too. It's like, well, how did you know that it was about to be summer? And what was summer like for you as a child? What are some of your favorite summer memories or rituals? And I thought I would share with you some of mine. So I grew up in Skokie, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. And I would say that my childhood would now be considered rather idyllic, although we didn't know that at the time. My childhood would take place in the late 60s and early 70s. And we lived on a block with a lot of other kids who were in our age group. And we traveled together like a pack. Like there was always someone to play with or do something with. And we were rather adventurous. And it also was a time when we could wander fairly unencumbered through our days. So we didn't always have to be supervised. We could ride our bikes or go on adventures. And years later, I would ask my mom about that, and she just shrugged. She said, well, I always knew where you were. And I think what she meant was, in general, she always knew where we were, but it isn't the kind of supervised life that children nowadays have. And I was thinking about what were some of the talismans that summer was going to arrive. So certainly there was the change in the weather. If you lived in the Midwest, you know that winter seems to last forever. And then somewhere around the end of March or early April, if we're lucky, the weather begins to turn. The snow begins to melt. And you can maybe think about going outside without a jacket. And then there would be opening day at Wrigley Field when the Cubs would play, which almost became a citywide holiday. And then there were some other things that I always would associate with the coming of summer. There was a community pool in Skokie, Oakton Pool, that was an oasis for all of us. And at the beginning of the season, each family would buy tokens to be able to go into the pool so that you didn't have to pay a daily rate. And my mom would send in for our tokens from the park district, and they would come in the mail, and they were little metal tokens that would have to be sewn onto our swimsuits, because you would show the token when you entered the pool, and they couldn't be pinned on, they had to be sewn on. So that was one of the first things. And we'd have to get our swimsuit for the year if we couldn't fit into the one from the summer before. And so the tokens would come. They would have to get sewn on. And in addition to the swimsuit, we would need a swim cap because you were not allowed to go in the pool without a swim cap. And again, late 60s, early 70s, and the swim caps were groovy. They were usually neon colored because, again, the era. And they would have these big plastic flowers on them. They would be padded, and they would have that strap that would go across your chin and hold them on. So not the sleek swim caps that Olympic swimmers wear, but these were fashion statements. They were really groovy. They kind of had a life of their own, and you would go and pick one out, right? So imagine getting to be a little girl and pick out your swim cap for the year. So there would be your swimsuit and your swim cap. Oh, and flip-flops. You for sure needed flip-flops, which we called thongs. So we called those thongs before thongs were used as a term for underwear, because thong underwear did not exist in the mainstream at that time. So our flip-flops were called thongs growing up. And then we would wait, right? We had our tokens, and we had our swim caps and our swimsuits and our thongs, and we would wait because there would be the opening day, but the pool wouldn't open if the weather wasn't in alignment. And then once the pool opened, we lived at the pool. I loved swimming as a kid. And to get into the pool, they would do a foot check. I don't know what they were looking for, but there was always some poor teenager who had to sit at the entrance of the ladies' locker room and the men's locker room, and you would have to show them your feet. And if your feet passed inspection, you got to go in. Then you might lock up your clothes or whatever it is that you carried with you and grab your towel and then go out to the pool. And there was a diving pool and then just a regular long pool. And a couple things that I remember about this was, the first was, back then, we didn't know about sunscreen. I don't know that sunscreen existed back then. Instead, we had suntan lotion or suntan oil. Those were your choices. You could either rotisserie yourself or you could simmer, because it was all about getting the tan back then. And it's absurd now that we know about the sun and sun damage. We didn't know about that then. And as I recall, you were not allowed to wear suntan lotion or suntan oil if you were going into the pool, because it contaminated the water, right? There would be this glossy sheen on top of the pool water. So all summer long, I think I just must have baked. I mean, I am fair-skinned, red-haired, blue-eyed, and I don't tan. It's not a part of my genetic makeup. So I don't quite know how that worked. I do remember getting sunburned as a kid. I remember using Noxzema. Did anybody else ever use Noxzema as a kid on sunburn? That mentholated, soothing energy that would bring comfort. And I just think about that now, that I just was running around and swimming all summer long without any kind of sunscreen. And we would just swim, and at some point I got swim goggles because my eyes would just get so red and burned from the chlorine. And I loved going to Oakton Pool. And I seem to recall they would do what were called safety breaks. So I think for 20 minutes of every hour, they had all the kids get out of the pool. It was one of their ways. They called it a safety check. I don't know. But it also gave the adults time to swim without the kids in the pool, because there were always a lot of kids in the pool. And I also remember across the street from Oakton Pool was Alexander's Five and Dime. It was like a dime store. That's what we called them back then. And they made snow cones. So you could go and get a snow cone. And I would always get the rainbow snow cone, so I didn't have to choose a specific flavor. And it was always a very messy affair. It had to be eaten outside because inevitably it would drip all over the place. But it was delicious on a hot day. And I also remember that across the street was a hot dog stand called the Hut, Corner Hut. And to this day, they had the best French fries I ever tasted. I don't know what it was about those French fries, but they live in my memory as a work of art. I don't know what I would think of them today. They're no longer in business, but I don't know. Those were the best French fries ever. You know, something about the flavors of childhood, right? They sort of dwell in a special place in our memories. The other thing I remember about that time is that, speaking of no sunscreen, we would actually put baby oil on our skin so that we could tan. No one broke it to me that I would never tan. I don't know that we knew. I think I really believed that I could have the skin color of a Tropicana girl, if you remember those ads, you know, the glistening, you know, tan, brown, healthy look. No one said, girl, you are just going to get more freckles and more red. I didn't recognize that that was the way my genetics worked at the time. As opposed to now, I so protect myself from the sun. Giant hat, long sleeves, no sun. And, but back then, I was going to roast myself in hopes of somehow becoming tan. Maybe all of my freckles would converge into a beautiful tan. I don't know. But I remember the smell of chlorine. And then at the end of the season, at the end of the swimming season, they would have Goldfish Day, which now seems kind of cruel, but they would dump a lot of goldfish in the pool, and the kids would then go in and swim to catch their goldfish, and they would, you know, hand out plastic bags, and we would put our goldfish in the plastic bag and triumphantly return home. And I think at that point every kid in Skokie had a goldfish that would live for, I don't know, a few weeks, a month maybe. And I think of the poor moms, because it was always the moms, not the dads, who took care of the fish, right? Who had to have a fish tank available and ready to receive the pool fish and fish food and some gravel, and we would rejoice about our goldfish. But that's the end of the summer. So let's go back to the beginning of the summer and some of my other memories about it. Another thing that happened at the beginning of summer was we would get to choose what classes we wanted to take at the JCC. So if you don't know what the JCC is, it's the Jewish version of the YMCA. So it's the Jewish Community Center. And we must have gotten the catalog somewhere around April or May. And we would sit down and strategize what classes we wanted to take. Because the classes were awesome. Like, these were not intellectual classes. These were classes like drama. Whenever there was a drama class or a theater class offered, I was in. That was my joy back then. So I have a recollection of always taking the drama class whenever it was offered. And I have a memory of taking some sort of enameled jewelry class. I don't know, I don't know how it works for you, but I'm always interested to witness what snippets of memories are here for me. Like, there's a lot I don't remember, but I remember this class, and we would get these metal pieces. They may have been copper. I remember they seemed to have been the color of copper, and they came in different shapes. So you could make earrings or a necklace, and we had to treat them with some kind of solvent. I want to almost say it was some kind of acid, but it couldn't have been acid if we were kids. So, but it was definitely something they said you had to use a glove to use. So in my mind, that related to some toxic solvent. I don't remember what it was. And so you would clean and treat the metal, and then you would get to use some sort of enamel that you would paint on, much like you would paint pottery. So the paint didn't necessarily look vibrant until it was fired, because it would have to get fired. And I remember making a pair of earrings that I had painted, and then they got fired, and the next week I got to see how beautiful they were. And isn't that weird how of all the different experiences I had in my many summers of my lifetime, I remember making those enamel earrings. I find that so interesting. I don't know why some things get tucked away and other things just disappear. But I do remember spending a lot of time at the J. Growing up, going to different classes, and they would have field trips, and I suspect it was a wonderful way for our mom to keep us out of the house and busy and entertained. So what wasn't to love about the summer, right? Swimming at the pool, right? Drama and making cool earrings at the JCC. I'm sure there was macrame in there somewhere, again, because it was the late 60s and early 70s. Oh, tie-dye. I'm sure we tie-dyed things. For sure. I remember doing tie-dye. And we would do lanyards. How many of you remember lanyards? It was that plastic cord that was flat, and you would string like 4 pieces together, and then you would do a stitch, and you would make a keychain or something like that. And it's so sweet. I went to Soul Camp many years later as an adult. Soul Camp was wonderful, and they had lanyard there, and someone showed me how to do it again, because I had forgotten, because it was 40 years later, 45 years later. And as soon as they showed me how to do the overlapping pattern of the lanyards, it all came back to me. And I then started weaving my lanyard again. It was so soothing. I don't want to lanyard anything. Like, I'm not looking for a keepsake made out of the lanyard cord. But I will tell you that weaving the lanyard pattern was so comforting. I would absolutely go and buy lanyard cord again, just for the soothing experience of weaving it. I'm sure I made many lanyards and plant hangers made out of macrame and groovy enameled earrings. And my ears were not even pierced at that time, so they must have been clip-ons. And drama. And my groovy swim cap and swimsuit. And the pool. But wait, there's more. Like, that wasn't the only fun part. I mean, summer was awesome. So some other things I remember about summer is we had a sour cherry tree in our backyard. And at the time, I had the cast iron stomach of a child. I mean, I can't even eat sweet cherries anymore because they upset my tummy if I have more than 2 of them. But back then, I could eat sour cherries. And we would climb up into the tree and we would wait because, it takes cherries a little while to ripen. So we would see them and they would be green and we would be waiting for them to ripen. And you sort of had to really be on lookout because you would then have to fight the birds for the cherries. So we would wait and wait for them to be ripe. And then when they were ripe, we would gorge ourselves. Well, I would gorge myself, and I think my brother did too. I don't think my sister liked them. But it was a glorious experience to have our very own cherry tree. And we would also pick enough that my mom at some point would make a cherry pie. But again, these were sour cherries, not sweet cherries. And then, alas, at some point, like many fruit trees, our tree was unhealthy and it had to get chopped down. And that was the end of the sour cherries. But for several years of my childhood, I had the joy of binging and feasting on sour cherries as a part of my summer ritual. And speaking of summer food, how many of you grew up with the Good Humor Man? We did. And we would wait and listen for those glorious bells and the shout of, "Good Humor Man." And they would come up our street, and I seem to recall that the ice cream bars and popsicles were between 5 cents and 10 cents, depending on what you got. My mom liked the chocolate eclair. My father liked the toasted coconut. I often liked the Rocket Pop. If you guys remember that, they still have them. Or sometimes an ice cream bar. And we would run out with our little handful of change that our parents would have gotten us, and we would gather around, and the Good Humor Man, I'm sorry about the gender, he was always a man, at least in my childhood. Perhaps they had good humor women other places, or good humor people, but this was the Good Humor Man. And there was like some miraculous, mysterious place in that truck where he would reach back and get the bars, because we never saw inside of the truck. And I remember always being mesmerized as a kid, like, what goes on in there? Where are all of these ice cream bars stored? What does it look like? And we never knew. You couldn't Google things back then. So it was left to the mystery of childhood to know how these ice cream bars were stored, that they would just come out frozen and ready for us. And one of the super sweet things I remember about both of my parents, and maybe this is most good parents, I don't know, I haven't had my own children that I was responsible for through childhood, is my parents would always let me have a bite of their ice cream bars, which I think is so profoundly generous. Like, ice cream bars are not that big. And I always wanted a bite of my parents because they would get the flavors I did not have. The chocolate eclair, you would get to the center and there would be like a chocolate bar. And my mother would let me take a bite. And my father would let me take a bite of his toasted coconut. And I don't know why this at this point in my life, I think that is the sweetest thing. I mean, I don't know that they would have said no to a child, but I just think they would always let us take a bite of something, whether it was a bite of a sandwich or their ice cream bar. They shared, and I don't know why that sticks with me in such a warm and sweet way. So the Good Humor Man, because that ice cream was always so much better than what you would get from the store. And at that time, you could only get Good Humor ice cream from the Good Humor Man. There was no distribution into stores. And since we're talking about ice cream, we should also talk about Baskin-Robbins, 31 flavors. There was a 31 flavors, I don't know, about a mile from our house. And that was also a joy because you could taste the flavors, not all of them, but you get those tiny spoons with a little taste of something. I almost always got the bubblegum flavor because it came with gumballs. And in my sense of abundance, I thought, I'm getting a 2-for-1. I am getting ice cream and I am getting candy. And I would save the gumballs until the ice cream was done and then chew the gumballs. So I think I almost always got the gumball flavor. And in a like bad older sister story, I don't even know that my sister would remember this. I will always be 2 years older than my sister. I love that. I was 2 years older than her, but now I'm 4 years older. That, it doesn't work that way. So I am 2 years older than my sister. And I was a bossy older sister. I know that would be hard to believe, right? Stubborn Taurus girl. And I don't know, I remember this one time my mom let us walk up to the Baskin-Robbins. It was safe to do those things back then, and I was holding the money. I was in charge of the money because I was the older sister. And my sister had a very plain palate back then. She was very picky about what she would eat and what she wouldn't. And so here we were at 31 flavors, and my sister wanted vanilla ice cream, and I was indignant. I was like, I'm not getting you vanilla. Vanilla isn't really a flavor. What did I know, right? I didn't think vanilla was really a flavor. And poor girl, she wanted vanilla, and I was so mean, and I was like, no, you have to get something else. And I was mean, and I made her get a different flavor. I don't even remember what she got. And to this day, I feel so bad that I dismissed her wish for vanilla ice cream. I'm so sorry across all the years. I'm sorry. I didn't know better. And so we'll bring some waves of forgiveness to any of our old childhood challenges with our siblings. And my dad would get, I'm trying to remember what flavor of ice cream my father would get. Probably toasted coconut. I think my dad just loved everything coconut. Or I think he might have gotten pistachio, because at some point I learned to love pistachio ice cream. That might have also been my mom. My mom also liked Jamocha almond fudge or coffee ice cream. So I remembered the wonders of coffee ice cream and pistachio ice cream. And then there was also mint chocolate chip, but I think that's always interesting. I don't know if you grew up going to a 31 flavors, but how each person in your family had a different flavor they enjoyed. And again, my parents would let me taste their ice cream. Versus I wasn't going to let anyone taste my ice cream. Listen, I was a girl who guarded her treats. You know, if you've been listening to this podcast or you've known me for any amount of time, you will know that all of my life memories are associated with food. That's how I imprint with the world. And so my other summer food memory that I will share with you is the joy of summer fruit. So I grew up in a time when you ate seasonal fruit. You know, there wasn't a lot of fruit being imported from other countries. You ate what was in season. And so when cantaloupe and watermelon were in season, oh, that was a joy. My mom would always cut up the melon, and there'd be a big bowl in the center of the table, and we would just feast on it. It was so good. Or the peaches or apricots. And also green grapes. So I always loved green grapes, as did my father and my brother. My sister didn't care for them, and my mom would eat a few, but my father, my brother, and I were all big grape eaters. I remember one of my youthful food traumas was that my mom would buy grapes, and I would have some, and then I would have to go to school or camp or wherever I had to go, and then I would come home and be thinking about my grapes. I was going to eat grapes when I got home, and they would all be gone. Because no matter how many grapes my mother bought, it was never enough because we all loved them. And so, as an adult, when they're sweet enough, I will always have grapes in my fridge. I've been like this ever since I could live on my own. You will always find grapes in my fridge as long as they are sweet. And as an adult, I have learned about the many amazing kinds of grapes. And to be fair, grapes are not necessarily a summer food. I mean, they are, but since I live in the Napa area, I have come to learn that the best grapes are harvested in the fall. Perhaps you did not know that. But come the end of September, there are gorgeous, glorious grape varieties available. And I will probably do a whole grape episode around then. But I will say, if you ever get the chance to eat peony grapes, Kyoho grapes, autumn crisp grapes, they are amazing. So, grapes and summer, and my trauma of not having my grapes when I would come home from whatever I was doing. I just thought that was funny. And I will also say that, the ode to summer, right? Summer also meant that we didn't have to be in school anymore. I did not like school. I know, big surprise. And I could not wait for it to be over. I could not wait for it to be summer. And I did not have to be at school anymore, because I've never been good about being places I didn't want to be. You know, some people can suck it up and make it work, and that's just never been me. I really resist and struggle when I have to be in places I do not want to be. So summer meant that I could just be hedonistic, right? I could be indulgent. I could go to the pool. I could have good humor ice cream. I could do my drama class at the J. Right? My authentic, sweet little life force could do what I wanted to do. And it was wonderful. And we would go around in a herd of children, and we would play. We'd play ball on the street. Our street wasn't terribly busy, and so, there'd be a car every 20 minutes or something. And we would yell, "Car!" And we would all scramble off the street. But we would make up games and play, and then we would ride our bikes. I had a banana seat bike, which was, of course, what you had to have back then. And I had the obligatory streamers that came out of the handlebars, which usually involved pink. And I had the little plastic woven basket on the front that had flowers on it, because again, late 60s, early 70s, and a bell that you could ring. And we would ride our bikes everywhere, even to the pool. We had, when we were older, we could ride our bikes to the pool. I was going to say to school, because we could also ride our bikes to school. But since we're talking about the summer, we'll make our destination the pool. And it was glorious to have the freedom to ride our bikes to the pool when we were old enough. And there was a playground near us, with one of those merry-go-round things, not the ones with horses, but the kind that I don't even know that they have them anymore on playgrounds because they're probably too dangerous, but you would grab the handles and run around it really fast until it started spinning, and then you would jump on until you got really dizzy. And we didn't have a lot of safety measures as kids. We were pretty much left to our own devices. And I just remember that sweet time of day because the sun would be up for so long, and that moment right when the day is starting to end, and the sounds of the crickets would change, and the birds, like the sound and the ambiance in the air, like everything would start to shift as the day would come to an end. We would have to go in for dinner, but we could often go out and play again afterwards. And we just were outside the whole day. And then the other thing I remember is, it would be hot and humid outside, but we didn't care. We were kids. And then that feeling of opening the door and going into an air-conditioned house, that change in climate, which was so refreshing. And I remember we would run through the sprinkler because no one had a pool at their house unless you went to the park district. So we would run through the sprinkler and play with the hose and, cool down that way. But we were kind of impervious to the heat as kids. And we drank a lot of Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid, High C, if you guys remember High C in the can, lemonade, and Kool-Aid flavors we would make. It was just a really glorious way to experience childhood. There was always something to do or an adventure to be had, and it was awesome. So here's to our summer memories, whatever yours are. I hope you have some good ones that you can reach into your stream of life and look at. And here's to the summer that is rising up to meet us. And may you find things that bring you joy. Nowadays my talismans of summer are very different. It's usually, first off, I live in California, where there's not as dramatic a difference between summer and winter. These days, I'm a fuss budget, so for me, summer just means it's hot, and I don't like it, so I stay in air conditioning. But also, for me, summer is our garden out back that my husband tends to. I say our garden, but my husband does 100% of the work. And how we're watching the tomato plants grow tall, and the tomatoes are starting to form and soon will grow ripe, and how there are longer days. And it's interesting, my relationship with summer is not as necessary as it was as a child because, again, in California, we almost always have nice weather. And I live a life where I get to pretty much do what I want when I want to do it. Yay, me! It's awesome. Yeah, so I get to live a rhythm of life that works for me. I rarely have to do what I don't want to do or be places I don't want to be. And that's what I remember summer being, just a wonderful expanse of getting to truly live in my spirit and go on adventures and have experiences that I love. And I'm fortunate that life allows me to do that more often than not these days. So, my beautiful friends, I send you love. And to your inner child, I invite you to come play with my inner child. And we'll have a lemonade stand together somewhere, and we will chase our good humor truck down, and I will treat you to an ice cream, and I will even let you get vanilla if that is your desire, because I now recognize that that is a bona fide flavor. And I wish you a good night's rest, and I am so grateful for this time together, and I send you lots and lots of love and comfort and well-being and beauty and inspiration. So I love you, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.